no one's passionate about business administration, but I was passionate about learning more than just the day-to-day working of how a company works again.
Hello, Paul Ashley here. I'm your host today for this episode of the Greencastle podcast. Really glad you've chosen today to join me on this podcast, because today you're going to meet a very special character. Her name is Jennifer Herron, and she is a senior project manager for renewable development at NextEra Energy. She's also a retired surface warfare officer from the United States Navy. On top of that, she's a full-time parent and also active in many veteran support organizations. But the central theme for today's episode is Jennifer's message of continuous professional development. Jennifer is what I would describe as a real disciple of learning, and she has a really sincere belief that you can better yourself through continuous education. So she has some top tips on how to balance study and continuous professional development along with everything else that's going on in your life. And I think you'll really enjoy humor and sincerity and energy in this interview.
This individuality stuff is a bunch of crap.
There's a reason why.
A master of innovation.
The key to this growing is you.
Any rational person would give up.
I can't disagree with that.
Make sure that we're not prisoners of our own experiences.
You need a team of great people.
Will not tolerate a loser.
What they need is a common vision.
Helping organizations win one veteran at a time. This is the Greencastle podcast.
Jennifer Herron, welcome to the Greencastle podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me today.
And also with us in the studio today, we have Mr. Brad Pellegrin, who's a consultant here at Greencastle Associates. Brad, welcome to the podcast.
Howdy, everyone.
And Brad's just here because he has a personal connection with Jennifer and is going to provide us with some interesting insights into her work. So what I'd like to do, just as a kickoff, is let our listeners sort of get to know you a little bit, and by doing that, sort of get a little bit of the background of where you're from, your education, some of your military highlights, and then building up to what you do at today at NextEra.
All right, thank you. Really appreciate having a chance being out here today, especially a Florida girl all the way up north here in this lovely, gorgeous weather you all have. So I just got to get that out of the way. And just in case I forget somewhere in this podcast, I do need to state this, is go Navy, beat Army, coming up soon, in whatever year it may be. I just want to get that out early in the podcast.
Well said. As a fellow veteran, even from the British side, I concur with those sentiments also.
There we go. And if you haven't figured out, my background comes, I graduated from the University of Florida. I did my bachelor's of science in environmental horticulture back in the late 90s, when, before Facebook and all the cool stuff that we all have nowadays is out there. Did 10 years in the United States military, in the United States Navy, 4 years on the USS O'Kane, DDG-77, a good Albert-class destroyer, one of the cooler ones out there, before the helos came in, so it was true SWO world. Yeah. Then I went to Naval Expeditionary Combat Command, working, and I got my sandbox time. Everybody's got to have it over there at some point, and got to do security for the Kuwaiti oil platform, Kuwaiti ports, as well as all the gear coming into Iraq and the Iraqi oil platforms. Once I got out of that, I came and I was working for a private company down in the South doing Caribbean export industrial products, and it kind of led me into a career with NextEra Energy Resources, where I worked in engineering and construction for the first 6 years, we build renewable projects as well as natural gas and oil projects. From there, got into development, and that's where I was really lucky to be working in Colorado, one of the largest growing states, as well as one of the most green forward states out there with wind, solar, and battery storage. While at NextEra Energy Resources, I became one of the founding members of VetNext. It's our Veteran Employee Resources Group, and we started off back in 2012 with about 50 members. We just had our fifth anniversary, and had our first ever Veterans Summit down in Juno Beach, Florida. And we are now over 600 members. So it's pretty impressive for a company, but we're only 15,000 people at NextEra Energy Resources.
Wow.
That's
incredible benchmark to hit right there.
Oh yeah, we're 15,000 people on 2,200 veterans. I mean, there are bigger companies out there, the Dominions, the XLs, and the PSEGs of the world, and the Dukes, that have more veterans, but not by percentage. We really do a good job of attracting veterans and bringing them into this industry. It's one of the greatest advantages I have of being a very talkative Navy vet who likes to tell how cool the Navy is compared to the Army. Is that I can go talk to anybody. That's what our military service brought to us: is don't be afraid to do something, don't be afraid to talk to somebody, and don't be afraid to go out and get answers. And I use it all the time, and to tell people about the amazing things our industry is doing, especially our company.
And did NextEra find you through a certain recruitment program they had, or was it an outreach program they were looking at the military, or did you approach them?
I approached them. I was lucky enough; my husband actually worked for the company before I did, and he had talked about, hey, they're looking for they've had this position open in engineering construction for almost 6 months. They haven't been able to find a good candidate. Why don't you consider applying? I'm like, babe, appreciate it. Got a really good career here going. He goes, just try it. I said, all right, fine, I'll try it. Applied for the job. They saw my resume. I think I put my resume in on a Monday, had an interview on a Friday, and I was hired the following week. My boss said, this position's been open for 6 months. He goes, you came in, and he goes, you act like you own the place. And he goes, I said, because that's what we do. We're military.
Bubbling with personality is what I would use to describe you.
But it was just a great opportunity. Is in the company. I mean, and it was. The very first thing I did the very first day was meet 3 veterans within our group. We just find each other. Veterans find each other, whatever reason it is.
It's usually because we're 15 minutes early.
This is probably have a lot more truth to it than we realize. We're like, why is no one else here but us?
Why is anybody else here? Because it's 8:45 and people don't get here till 9.
That's not Air Force time. That's Navy time.
Correct.
That's Army time.
This is before the folks get over to the golf course. Usually, some of us actually go into work early. I understand that. 6 a.m. is different between each service.
Yeah. And I'm interested in what you say about VetNext there, because I understand you were one of the founding members of that. So you helped start it.
So our veterans employee resources group. Our company has 12 employee resources group. We have multiple different organizations: Women in Energy, Women in Nuclear. You have a Hispanic. You have Asian American, African American club. But veterans, we like as a employee resources group because it's one of the few things you can say. What you're doing today is going to affect everybody else down the road. It touches somebody else everywhere. So our goal is to help our veterans, find veterans, bring them into our industry, specifically bring them into our company. Tell them, because we like to say we're the biggest company no one's ever heard of. So a lot of veterans don't know about, what NextEra does. We're the largest company in our sector. We have a market cap of over $113 billion, but no one's ever heard of us. And it's like, our company has so many opportunities for the pilots, for the SWOs, for the grunts, for the, I won't say the window lickers in the Marine Corps because my husband's one of them, but sorry, it's out there. It's everybody, for the guys shooting the guns, the guys driving the trucks. There's some job for you in our company. And the reason we want to bring you in, whether you've never had a day of energy experience in your life, is because you already come with inherent dedication, leadership skills, camaraderie. Those are the things we can't just teach some kid off the street. That's what a veteran brings to the company. Those are the things that really, that true leadership that will make you successful, make your business unit successful, and over the end of the day, make the company successful. So we are constantly trying to find those right veterans, bring them in, explain to our management, here is why these are important to bring into the company. Here's what they can do for you that you don't have that leadership or that skill gap in your business unit.
And do you think it's a product of the energy sector that recognizes this diversity and skill set that military veterans have? Or do you think it's generic in the corporate space from what you've been exposed to?
I would definitely say it's very specific to the energy sector. The reason being is, think about, on average, majority of the energy companies, over half of the people working for the company are folks that are outside. You're working on a line, you're building a construction area, you're fixing a substation, you're doing something to do with power. Well, military folks, we already know that. Some folks like to dig ditches. Some of us like to be on a ship where, a little more comfortable here. But we understand the rigors of not sitting behind the desk all day long. We understand that actually physically using your hands to do the job. And I think that's where our sector really brings in. We understand the hardship. A good chunk of it is, if we're really going to be busy in our industry, it's when it's snowing, when there's a hurricane, there's a tornado. These are high pressure situations, and who else best to take than a veteran who comes in and can walk in and say, okay, there's 5 million things going on. Focus on this, get this job done. When this one's done, go to the next one. Or take all the information that you have at the moment, make the best decision with you have, and as you continue to get more information in, you'll adjust your answers. But I want somebody with that calmness. I want somebody who's not fazed by the little things, who gets paralyzed by making a decision. veterans don't do that. And that's why our industry, I really think, attracts them very well. And our industry is always looking for more of the veterans that are coming in.
Jennifer, I'd like to back up a little bit and talk about your education background that you've already alluded to, because it's pretty diverse in terms of the things you've qualified in, the experience you've had, and I think our listeners would really benefit from hearing how you got through that and how you applied it in your career as you move forward. So starting off with your BSc there, you mentioned it was environmental horticulture, and you went from that, as we briefly spoke about, to firing missiles in the Navy. So I was interested to know how that linked together and how you applied yourself.
Yeah. So when I got into college, University of Florida, I thought I wanted to be an engineer. I was so sure I was going to be an oceanographic engineer. I got through the first couple calculus. I'm like, I could do this. Got into physics. I can't do this. But I realized I still had a passion for the kind of the organic chemistry background. And I still had a passion. My father at the time had a business that did environmental services with herbicides, fungicides, insecticides. And he's like, why don't you just look at environmental horticulture? It's kind of, you still get your organic chemistry background, still have the heavy, the calculus that you'll need, but you get out of the physics and you get out of some of the ones you just not handling. Got in it, loved it. My ROTC program now, on the other hand, I was in ROTC at University of Florida, is going, that's a unique background, but keep the grades up. As long as the grades are staying up there, and you're getting it. And it was a great opportunity because while I was in college, I'm sitting here doing all of my ROTC stuff. You've got your very military regimented, your black and white, where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to be learning. And then I go over to the ag students, basically the rednecks of South Florida and Northern Florida. And I'm learning from them. I'm learning hands-on stuff that, there's one thing you learn in class, but it's a whole other thing to go out in the field and actually do this stuff. And actually, go out and till in the ground, or go in, 5 a.m. to a golf course to go look at nematodes. Something I would never, ever need. I would never need in my naval career, but I knew it was something just learning to get hands-on. So, I got my degree in 1997, in 1997, in environmental horticulture with a minor in turf grass, no less. Wild and crazy days. Very next, I graduated, I think it was December 19th, 1997. By middle of January, I was in Naval Warfare School up in Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island. And I remember my first instructor going, everyone you walk, you have all the newly minted ensigns walking around going, okay, so where'd you go to school? What'd you graduate in? And they got to me, they're like, oh, okay, Lieutenant Herron, Ensign Herron, what's your degree in? Environmental horticulture, sir. What? And I'm like, environmental horticulture with a minor in turf grass. And I just remember getting, the instructors had a field day with that for 6 months up in Rhode Island and for surface warfare school. But you know what? It taught me really quickly. I didn't know engineering background well. I learned my LM 2500 gas turbine engines, good old Allison LM 2500s. I'll never forget those. Learn my communication background and use that as I can learn anything and do anything. It's just learning the discipline of going to school, figuring out something you love, never know when you may or may not use it again. And back in 1997 when I graduated, I'm like, oh God, I hope I use this. I really like it. Never thought it'd be almost 20 years later before I finally got true use of that degree. But here I am now. So I did my degree, like I said, went to the Navy, did 10 years in the Navy, provided a couple of maybe possible turf little spots for the CO to hit some things off the golf balls off the back of the ship. He enjoyed that one. And then went right on into, going into full-time work and having a child. And then my husband, very smart that he did his MBA first. He used his GI Bill and went to University of Florida University of Florida, South Florida MBA program, executive MBA program. And we'd always joked, I'm like, well, if a Marine can do an MBA, how hard it could be for a sailor. And when he started, I'm like, oh crap, if he's doing this and he actually succeeds, I have to follow him. I'm going to be in trouble.
So there's pressure.
There's a bit of pressure.
And there's a thought of sabotaging him, babe.
I'm not gonna lie that I was like going, all right, so if he doesn't make it all the way, I don't have to start this. But as he's doing it, I'm watching I know it sounds so corny to say this, but I watch my husband's confidence build. I mean, my husband is exceedingly good, strong man, but just watching him in a degree he didn't have any background in, and going back to school after so many years, it just instilled a little bit of confidence that he could keep up with the 22, the 25, the 28-year-olds. And we were in our 40s when doing
Possibly
this.
even outperform them, considering how much experience you have now in the real world and the business world.
That's exactly it. You have the United States government entrusted you to keep America safe. And one of the goals one of the perks they gave you was a GI Bill. Why wouldn't you use it? My husband kept saying, why would you not use this, Jen? You've got this. So I'm like, all right, fine. You got in there. You got in. So again, it can't be hard. A Marine can do it. Sailor should be able to do it. I got into school, took a little extra effort, but by the time I was getting ready to do it, we already had a 3.5. So when my husband went through, we just had we had a 2 to 3.5-year-old. And on weekends, he would take off. I watched the kid. No big deal. Well, by the time it was time for me to start, now we have a 3.5-year-old, a 3-month-old. I'm working full time, and we had just moved into our new house not 4 months beforehand.
Oh wow!
And I was like,
intense.
It was everything at once. But I'm like, crap. All right, I'm just gonna go and do it. And let me tell you, probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my career, because I was the only of a class of 58 people. I was the only veteran in the class. I was the oldest person in the class, only person with 2 kids. And I'm looking around going, oh my God, all these young kids. But it's exactly what you said. It's that experience you bring. And I kick myself for not doing it earlier, just because, again, the military entrusted me to keep the U.S. safe. And one of my perks was to go to school, some way to better myself or my career and my children's career. They saw my son, a little young now, which is probably good that he didn't see it because God knows what trouble he got into. But my daughter saw her mom going, at nighttime, sitting with a book, going on weekends, going and learning something she didn't know. My kids would come down, I think when my son was almost 18 months old. I remember him coming in down to school where I went to school. And he's like, Mommy's school. And I'm like, oh, it just made me good, because you know what? He may not have connected at that moment, but I know there was that he's proud of Mommy. And Mommy's proud of herself for doing this.
It's more of that sort of example setting early on for your children to study and educate themselves.
Exactly.
Start them early.
I mean, that's, you don't have to go and do some wild, huge, amazing degree from Harvard or Yale, or, you don't have to have a bioengineering degree. You just got to find something that you're passionate about and you want to make yourself better. Again, we're given this opportunity by the military to say either your GI Bill. Oh, that's one bit of advice. I foolishly, when I graduated University of Florida, if you're ROTC, and some of the folks probably listening and know this, you used to have an option back in the day to sign or not sign your GI Bill. When I graduated college, I'm like, I will never come back to school again. I waived my GI Bill. Don't ever do that.
That's sound advice there.
Yeah, so I only got the post 9/11, which is 50% instead of the 100%. So my husband had 100%, so he went to school free, and I had to figure out a little way to pay the little extra. So my schooling, my MBA was $60,000. Military paid $30,000, my company paid $15,000, and I paid $15,000 out of pocket. But if I can tell anybody one bit of advice, and I don't think nowadays you're allowed not to waive it, but it's there. You just don't. Sometimes you don't think about it. You're like, I'm never going to go back to school. I don't need that, I don't need that paper. Yes, you do.
Never say never, especially when it's about your future and your education.
Exactly.
Indeed. You made a really interesting point there about passion, because when you're an individual who's juggling so many priorities in your life, family life, education, your work life, I think it's very important or vital to pick something that you're passionate about, because otherwise, am I right in saying you won't do it because you're not driven enough to prioritize it above everything else you have going on in your life?
Yeah.
And I want to ask you sort of personally, how did you zero in on that particular element of education? How did you know that was going to drive and you were going to do it? And when you pulled the trigger to start education in your sort of second career, if you like, how did you know that was the right thing to do and it was going to be the priority in your life at that point?
So I'm probably like a lot of your listeners. I was in my mid-30s, and I had just kind of changed careers and starting with Next Energy Resources, had a young child, and I'm like, okay, everybody's a little younger than I am around the room. Everyone's gunning for the next position up kind of thing. What am I going to do that's going to help me be with this company for the next 20, 30, 40 years? Or what's going to help me kind of get one leg up over my competition? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all coworkers. I love my coworkers. I'm exceedingly lucky with my company, probably have one of the best teams to ever work with. But the reality is, there's only so many positions above me, only so many positions above them. What am I going to do that's going to help me continue to do that? And I knew that I needed a little more of the business management side of the house. I knew how to talk to people. I knew how to sell things. I could figure out the engineering aspect of it. I could talk with the construction guys a little, probably too well from my military background. Shocker. But what do I do to talk to the folks about me? How do I explain my positions? And because the husband and I were kind of talking about that, he's like, well, let's, and that's when he decided, let's try. I really want to do something. And, and I looked at the MBA, even when I joked that, if you start it and you can complete it, again, I can do it too. But when I really looked at it going, okay, trying to figure out what school to go to, what program to do, the University of Florida executive program for me was the perfect fit. It was going to classes with people somewhat my age, quite a few years younger on many of them, but people who had work experience. It wasn't sitting in a classroom doing theoretical stuff. This was the opportunity. The program I had down south was an executive program. It was people all coming from work. Almost all of us were full-time employees somewhere in some big corporation. We had Caterpillar, we had HBO, we had Heinz Ketchup, we had Cisco, 2 utilities. I mean, we had a lot of us. So we came from different backgrounds. It was like, what am I going to do that's going to help me? And I really was one of the best decisions I made. I looked from what my salary was from the day I started my MBA to where I am now, which is almost double my salary. And what it was is my employers seeing that I'm willing to take on a little bit more challenge each time. And to me, it was, I need to challenge myself. I have to find some way to not just kind of be stuck in it wasn't even a rut, but I wasn't getting anything above really where everybody was. Everybody's kind of ganging for the same thing. That going and furthering my education and doing something to make myself stronger and better for my own career it benefited me, but it benefited my employers, because my bosses, because they said, okay, she's willing to do that. Let's give her a little more challenge of this work. Let's give her a little something else. And I said, I'm on my 4th promotion since my MBA. Like I said, double salary, 4th promotion. And I look all of it because I'm like, if I can do that in my MBA, if I can go out and always the only one. I remember the first day of class, all these kids have their computers open and I got a yellow notepad and I'm trying to write everything down and they're typing away. I'm like, oh crap.
Old school.
Exactly. I'm going to die in here. And it wasn't until almost a month in and I'm just like, but I remember one of the teammates, hi, Mrs. Herron. I'm like, oh my God, they just called me. They think I'm her grandma. But I had the notes. I had the written notes.
And this is what I'm really interested in actually is, you come in and you have an age experience on these other people attending this executive program. How did that attract them to you after, the warm-up period's over? And I can kind of see you as potentially being like the mother of the group and sought after for your more extensive experience.
I was really lucky. As it was funny on the very first day of orientation in your MBA program, they ask you kind of always your backgrounds, and everyone goes around. I was like the second or third to last one to go, just because where I was just happened to be sitting in the room. And I go, I was United States Navy, and they're all like, they're looking back at it. You see the whole room looking back. They're like, oh crap, she's gonna be one of those crazy military ladies. And I wasn't far off from it, but
that's because you were Navy.
I was Navy because some of us got to keep the Army guys out of check. I mean, the Air Force, they're still asleep right now or on a golf course. But I mean, they kind of look back and they're like, what's she gonna say or do? And there were a couple of probably comments that may not have been the most appropriate in a setting like that. But at the end of the day, everyone could. Well, Jen, what would you do on this one? What do you think? Did you ever see this? And especially when it came to some of the law programs we did, or the law classes we did, I'm like, I had the background of the procurement that I had, the engineering programs, and then it was, okay, well, she's not afraid to talk. She's not afraid to ask a question.
She's not really afraid of anything.
They know, and that's what I really. I mean, that's why I keep pushing all of my fellow veterans and everyone I meet. There's a lot of charities we work with our company, with Stand Down House, helping rehabbing alcohol, PTSD, and drug rehabbing veterans. Forgotten Soldiers Outreach, Wounded Veteran Relief, Operation 120, getting homeless female veterans off the street. One of the biggest things I said is, okay, don't forget, once you get yourself a little bit cleaner, once you get yourself ready, educate yourself. You've earned that right. Go do it, because you know what? When you say you're a veteran, especially usually in any be it a technical program, vocational program, anything, they're going to look at you and just expect you to be confident in your answers and expect you to say, okay, I'll do this. I can do this. And if you can do it, you're going to show the people around you that it can be done. Don't quit at something. And look, there are going to be plenty of days. If anyone saw my financial grades, maybe you may not be listening to this podcast right now, but every other grade I did really well. One finance class, I'm sure at UF is probably looking at my grades right now as they're listening, going, "Yeah, she shouldn't talk about that one." But I wasn't afraid to go ask questions. I went to the professor and said, "I need help. I can't figure this one out." And I had other students who were like, "Oh, you talked to the professor? Yeah, why wouldn't you? What's he going to do? Make me an ensign? Send me back to sea?" Been there, done that. It's that confidence you get and be able to go in and it does. It kind of, if you do that and they see you leading, they'll step their game up a little bit. It's just like anything else. And I think it's just that innate leadership we all have, that we want to do well and we want the people with us to do well. So it brings everybody up a little bit. And that's, again, why I want veterans constantly, whenever I'm talking to veterans, be it inside our company, the charities we work with, or the Veterans in Energy conferences, go and use your educational benefits and go. And if you're out of your educational benefits, find a free one. Go to some program somewhere, because there's always something you do that's going to make you better and make you stronger. Don't waste these opportunities to find something, again, that you're passionate about. No one's passionate about business administration, but I was passionate about learning more than just the day-to-day working of how a company works. Again, I went from working for the military to a 10-person corporation, well, a little bearing point away, but about a 10-person corporation to a 15,000 person corporation with red tape all over the place. Not far off from the military. And I had to figure out, how does the world above me work? And so I did become passionate about trying to get more business acumen, and that was the outlet. That the MBA was my outlet and something I could do that I knew would help me. And I still to this day think is one of the best educational things I could have done. I mean, we just had at our Veterans Summit on November 14th down at Juno Beach, Florida. I had a UFMBA coming down there. And all these people were like, "You did that program?" And you did, yes. And they got a ton more people coming to the program, because it's such a great networking thing too. You're making people so far out of your comfort zone. And you just get that opportunity to say, okay, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me with this? I'll help you with this. And then, okay, one of the biggest things, shocker that I talk, is I would let them write the PowerPoints. I go out there and talk. And I wasn't afraid to do it in front of a class. A lot of them were like, "Oh, I really don't want to get up and do that. I want
to build all the background for it, but I don't want to have to come up here and present it."
Exactly.
And that's the thing with this, allied to that confidence piece is the discipline piece, I believe, with the veterans. So backing up to when you're talking about studying and applying yourself and being that sort of a mother to the classroom and so forth, obviously, no doubt your experience in the military has taught you that discipline and routine element, that you've got to structure how you approach things. So I was interested if you'd speak a bit more about that, how you apply that sort of discipline and structure piece that you were gifted in the military, so to speak, into the academic environment.
I'll tell you, that was probably the toughest part of that program, was to go from almost 20 years out of college to all of a sudden going, "Oh crud, I got to study every night." You can't. I'm a great procrastinator, as some people may learn here very soon. But it was. You can't do that with an MBA. You can't do that when you go to school. You have to find a way to get into some sort of rhythm, and especially if you're a parent or someone working full time. So again, I go to work from 7:45 till 5:45 in the evening. I pick up the kids afterwards, get them home, get them bathed, eat, sleep, the whole kit and caboodle. By 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, you're like, okay, now I get to slow down, and now you're tired, but you still have a house to clean. You still have maybe emails or other work to do, and you still got to do schoolwork. And I just had to find that drive to keep me going. And I think, again, that's that military just dedication in all of us, is we don't want to fail. We're too afraid to fail. It's not that you're not going to go out and try something you've never done and maybe you don't succeed the first time, but you don't want to just stop. You're not going to quit. So I just kind of had to find a way. A lot of the folks could study at work. I just couldn't, just because of my schedule. And some folks would be able to study at night. They all go meet up at some place down in Miami or go work together. Again, I was up in Juno Beach in Jupiter, Florida, 2 hours away from them. So I just had to find time. Maybe it was 15 minutes a night, a half hour a night. Friday nights were, I don't think I had a social life for 2 years.
I was going to say, I'm sure this had a huge impact on your social life there.
Because classes were always every Saturday, Sunday, all day. And so Friday nights, a lot of times we're pulling all-nighters. When Surge was still cool, before Rippets. would be all-nighters on Friday night just to make sure I got everything I got in and be ready for tests. But I just had to, and then Sunday nights, I'm a huge college football fan. Go Gators, by the way, for anyone out there. And missing out on a lot of those weekend things, but I'm like, okay, I can do this. I just have to dedicate the time to get this done. And I'll be honest, I had to study more than most of the students. I was 20 years out. A lot of these, my cohort was only 5, 10, 12 years out.
And they're in a rhythm of studying as well. It's just fresh in their minds of the.
And they probably just freshly had some economics classes and a bunch of other business administration and development classes.
Exactly. So I just had to. So I was the one still. Give me the textbook. Let me read it. I just paid $400 for a book that no one will ever use again. I'm highlighting the heck out of this book.
So would you say it was like when people are out of a fitness regime, for example, and you try and get back on the horse and you keep trying, once you were settled into some kind of rhythm, it became, not to say easier is probably the wrong word, but you could actually manage it because you had a set routine. Was that
it was. That's probably one of the great correlations. It is because you've been out of it so long. You're like, oh, at first, the first couple times you're getting back into it, you're like, oh, I can't do this. I'm like, okay, I got to do it. Let me just take a small bite of the apple. I'm not going to eat the whole apple all at one bite. I'm going to take one small bite. Okay.
Small wins, yeah.
It is. It just go for, okay, so tonight, just 20 minutes. Okay, I don't understand this chapter. Let me go look up something. Or, okay, I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it tomorrow night. There's not class for another 2 weeks. I'm just going to keep looking at a little more every night. I think I helped the cue card industry for those 2 years. Again, back to this is old school 44-year-old Jen Herron.
But you do what it works for you. I take
exactly.
You do what works for you. Yeah.
My husband at some point, he's like on Thursday and Friday nights, he would sleep in the guest room because he knew that I was just going to pace reading cue cards to myself constantly. But it was I got it. I remember if I could visually see it and just keep going and saying it to myself and doing it, I could get it. And it just became, like I said, it became that rhythm. It became more comfortable. And I know this is going to sound so corny, but I almost kind of missed, like the year after I was finished, I missed it because it became, this is what I do on Friday nights. This is how I get through something. It kind of made it a little bit easier. I knew if I did these next few steps, I'm going to be successful in the actual test or when the presentation comes because I prepared myself.
Were there any low points where you wondered to yourself, actually, I can't manage all of this. I can't get through it. Were there any sort of dark moments?
Oh, yeah. So anyone who has kids, so we'll know that at some point they're going to start teething. They're going to have some version of a really bad cold. Or your entire household will have a really bad cold.
Or all at once. Yeah.
All at once, exactly. Every parent out there's going, oh, I've got a story for that one. Mm-hmm. I remember about 6 months in, so this would be beginning of 2014. Beginning of 2014, and my son horribly sick. And it had just gone through a growth spurt. He's super sick. My daughter gets sick. I get sick. And then I'm just like, and I had
families share everything, don't they? Even illnesses.
Whether they want to or not. Yeah. And I was just like, and you're not supposed to ever miss class. And I'm thinking, I just can't make it this weekend. I can't leave a sick kid. I'm behind on work now because I missed 2 days of work because of my son being out from school and my daughter not feeling well. And I'm like, my husband's like, look, and he's saying to this as snot's running down his nose, just go. It's going to be painful. It's because it's an hour drive each way from me when I was going to school there. And sometimes I would come home. Sometimes I'd stay down with family down there just because it got very costly. But this time I'm like, I'll come home. He's like, no, go. It's your test. You got to go there. And I was just like, I'm driving for this a little over an hour this morning going, because I would leave the house usually around 6 a.m. to get there about 7-ish so I could kind of prep before class every day. And I'm thinking, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I leaving my kids and my family at home sick to go do this when I could do this online? I could do some other time. I could do this when my kids are. And I remember just finally getting into and breaking down. I was crying as the last couple of minutes as I pulled up to campus, or pulled up to where the campus was, and I pulled into the parking lot. And I saw a professor like, "Hey Jen, how's it going?" And I'm like, instantaneously, I'm like, he knows my name, and he's just like, and he saw me. He's just like, "Hey, come on inside. Let's have a drink." Well, whopping. The drink was tea. Woohoo!
Nothing wrong with tea. Yeah.
Yeah. from the Brit side of the house. Yeah, we haven't dumped it in the harbor in a long time, so we're probably safe.
That's the next podcast.
There you go. But it was once I got, and I'm like, oh my. And that whole weekend, he just kept checking in on me, and just making sure. He's like, you can do this. I'm like, I don't know. I'm a mom, I'm a full-time worker, I'm not a good student, I'm not really, he goes, just do it. He goes, what do you have to lose? It's paid for, the military paid for you. What do you have to lose? And I just remember that. It was a January or February of 2014 and just going, okay, I can do it. And it did take another 2 weeks afterwards because it was, on top of everything else, it was a hard class. So it was a hard class. My kids are sick. Everything came in at one time and I'm going, and thank you, God, that I went through that one little, and again, it's nothing in the world. It's a first world problem. Mm-hmm. But it kept me for the next 18 months going, especially when I got into the harder classes where I'm like, oh, I'm out of my league.
And like anything, once you've overcome an obstacle like that in a dark time, you say, well, actually, I got through that. I can continue. I can handle anything.
It is.
And I'm interested in learning from your experience, because it sounds to me like it's very important from your perspective to have those support networks when you're doing something like this. Mentors, family, friends, work colleagues. And I was wondering who you sort of drew on for support and mentorship through this sort of difficult period.
So I lucked out. And my boss at the time is who's my now permanent mentor. I've no longer worked for him, but I get to talk to him right now probably every week, but usually every couple of days. My boss at the time was absolutely brilliant. He's the one who hired me on. He's the one who saw something in me that it took 6 months for him to find someone, and we just clicked. And when I told him I was going to do my MBA, because he had talked about doing a black belt or a green belt, your Six Sigma program, which I'm sure a lot of folks know about. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't see the benefit of that one. I don't know that I could take that with me. For some reason, I never left this company. Can I really take that with me? And he goes, well, so, you're talking about doing your MBA. Why won't you do it? I'm like, and again, it was in that time frame when I'm starting it. I'm like, well, pregnant. My husband's doing it. Do I really need it? He goes, why not? He goes, the company, I'll help you. I'll help you in terms of if you need a little extra time off or you need something here, I'll help you. And he could tell on Mondays when I would come in after a long weekend, and he'd just, maybe stay away from me for a couple hours before he'd come and ask questions. But he just always was there for me. I could walk into his office at any time of day, call him any time of night, and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't figure this out. Or he knew right after I had a certain semesters where I had given really good presentations, like I'd be all proud. Like, that's kind of like you're like a kid, you're going to your parents, like my dad's like, cool, awesome, great. My boss is like, that's really awesome. I know you were studying. I know you would, you came in once in a while. I'd sneak out of my house on Sunday mornings at 5 a.m. to go to my office for 2 or 3 hours before the kids really woke up. And my boss would be like, why are you online? I can see you online. It means you're in the office. I'm like, because it's quiet in here. I can get stuff done. And he always kept pushing me. And to this day, he helped me get my next position and my advancements I've gotten, and he continues to do that. And that's who I looked as. You got to find someone who's your champion, and someone who'll be honest with you. Where there are days where he's like, you got to figure out what you're going to do today, but that's not it. And he's always is, what's your new priority one today? What's the priority one? And you've got to have someone that keeps you focused like that and is truly honest with you. And he was and continues to be. I mean, he's unfortunately he's a Georgia Tech fan, so I can't help that part for him. Can't have everything.
Perfect.
No one's perfect. You can almost be a cool Navy Gator like myself, but he's truly a good friend and a good mentor, and always wants me to do something that does what's going to do for you down the road. Is this going to help you? Are you just going to make a lateral, or is this you're just doing something to buy the time? And he's always looking for something to help me go along, and that's find your champion. I don't care if your champion is your 3-year-old, your champion is your parent, is your coworker, is your friend, but somebody who's proud of your accomplishments. Because when you hear, you may blush, and I think the whole world is bad about taking compliments. I'm the worst of it. But inside, you're like, I feel good. That felt good to hear, especially someone knows you. When you hear that they're proud, it's kind of like your parents. You want to make your parents happy. But hearing it from someone who has no vested biological interest in you, like a parent who has to be, or a sister. But just find someone that you really want to make proud, and you really trust their judgment. And that's what my old boss was, and continues to be to this day. I mean, I said when he goes, like, he saw my little profile on LinkedIn, and he was like one of the first people to text me. He goes, I'm so proud of you for that. I'm like, aww.
Well, that's great. And I think that's a critical message I think everyone listening should take away, is to find someone that's going to hold you accountable and be an honest, true champion.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'd like to do now, Jennifer, if we could, is just looking back on your military career and mine also. We know that personal and professional development are there in the military. They're there to be for the taking. Some people don't do it, and some people don't take the opportunities. Some people do. So I'd like to sort of draw out for our listeners the ways in which you see that the military do provide you that personal professional development opportunities, and what the ways you can actually go and seek them out. Who do you ask? How do you apply yourself? So when you do come around to taking maybe professional courses in the civilian world, you've already set yourself up for success.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the first places that you get it in the military is, and I don't remember what the acronym is or what the term is, and outside of the Navy, but the Navy was called PQS, is your professional qualification system, and from the day you get in to the day you finally get out, 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 40 years later, you have to do PQSs. And what it teaches you is each one you build upon itself. You have to, your very basic ones when you get to a ship is damage control. Damage control has no relation to the real world. How is on a ship me learning how to put my damage control gear on, how to get the PPE. Here's my one acronym is how figuring out where the fire extinguishers are on the ship. How does that have any relation to what I'm ever going to do? Well, what it teaches you is everything has a step. Everything goes one by one. You build upon it. So you start off on the very basics, even us little ensigns, going on board the ship and go and talk to a senior chief or go and talk to your senior enlisted. It teaches you to go, 1, figure out what you have to learn. 2, got to go talk to someone to learn it. Everything on the ship is you physically have to go do it. Or in the military, to get that qualifications, you have to go do it, which means you have to go try it, which means you have to go talk to somebody to learn it.
Yeah, you get your damage control task book, as I remember. You have to, go around to the hairy chief engineer and all those of the like, and ask the questions. And
that's exactly it. You had to go around. You had to go talk to people, and then you had to try it. Because at least I think a lot of times in the military is the junior officers have are given less trust than some of the junior enlisted. Like, okay, sure, ma'am, you had 4 years of college and you're just coming out to teach us. I remember when I graduated college, did my surface warfare school, got to my first ship. I was 22 years old. I had 18 people working for me, some younger and a lot older, but I was responsible for everybody. I remember my chief going, "Ma'am, just you sit there." I'm like, "No, Chief, I can do this." He goes, "Okay, I'll let you try." Some I was successful at, some I was complete utter failure, but learned from it and figured out the next one. But I still got that PQS book just like that E2 did. And
you also learn where the expertise lies in the organization. It's going out and speaking to those people or have been around longer than you have, and as a manager, managing that expertise and respecting it and saying, well, I need to go for that person for that element. That person's an expert here, and managing the SMEs.
Yep. And it just what you just said there, the SMEs, your subject matter experts. It's funny how in our company, you can tell who the military are. They're the ones who go to someone's cube or someone's office or walk down to that floor to that building to go talk to somebody face to face, because they understand the value of going to talk to someone to get an answer, as opposed to trying to find it in a book or just find it online and just assume you know how to do it. My job as a project manager in development for Colorado is herding goats. I had the conversation. I know everyone says herding cats, but I like to say herding goats because it kind of goes into the fact that everyone's going after each other. Everyone's trying to get out of their lane, take something that's not theirs. Like a goat's trying to eat something they shouldn't be eating or getting on top of something they shouldn't be doing. That's what a project manager's job is. But I learned that in the military because when I got to my first ship, it was go talk to chief here, go talk to first class fireman here, go talk to the yeoman here, go talk to all these people, sit with them. Do their job with them or learn what you're supposed to learn. And you think that, again, I think in my head, I still remember my PQS going to my first going to DC-1 in the Navy, a damage control one first class at E6 going, yes, I know, I've been on the ship a whopping 3 weeks. I barely know where my berthing is to back to engineering, but can you show me how to do this? And he goes, okay, ma'am, here we go. And he's thinking, I'm just going to sit here and just check. No, I got interested. I loved it. And it became more and more, I got that. So my first set of lessons were not the greatest. It took me a long time to kind of pick up stuff, but then it became, I want to do my second level, then I want to do my third level, and each one of those progressively made me better at something else that I had to learn.
And there's continuous education right there.
Exactly.
I just want to link something there because it's interesting you say that about veterans, or the attitude that we have in going to find the answer and getting off your seat and going down and talking to people. Mm-hmm. With your experience now in the corporate world, how do you think that marries with the whole new world of virtual working and virtual meetings and people working remotely? Have you experienced any sort of difficulty with adapting to that, or do you think there's ways around it? Because I'm sure everyone would be interested to hear how you sort of cope with that, being that you're wired in the way you just described.
So in my job, I travel a lot. So I'm constantly out of the office. Good or bad, I'm being a platinum member of Delta is really cool, but it's because I unfortunately travel so much to get middle seat back row to get that lovely points. So I have to do a lot of this virtual, and it's hard for me. No one can see in this podcast, but I'm Italian, so I'm using my hands constantly. I'm trying not to hit this mic, but I'm used to being in person with somebody, talking with someone, go and see them face to face. So it's taking a lot harder for a lot longer for me to kind of figure out, okay, how do I deal with this virtual wireless world where I can't see the people I need to manage or I can't see the people I need help with. And what I found is, and I know it's still old school, God forbid we don't text, instead of you talk to somebody, pick up a phone. You don't have to be in the office. Again, I love walking into someone's cube or someone's office going, our campus is 3,000 people. I love walking to another building and going and get the answer, but I can't. Pick up a phone. You don't have to do everything via IM or text or Snapchat or whatever the latest and greatest thing is way beyond my capabilities. Physically talking to somebody, as corny as that is more important. And I think that's how you get around this work from home or work from far away or at virtual offices. IM or text works for a point, but it doesn't get the passion across. It doesn't get the, did you mean to say that? And when you hear the pause from someone, you realize they didn't really get what you just said, kind of thing. That's how I think you get around the virtual world. If you can't physically go see someone, which, again, I think is always your first best, at least for me, it works, because I can sit down and go, I know you said this, but I don't really understand what this means. Can you draw it for me, especially in our engineering and our energy world? Or can you just explain that? And usually there is 5-10 minutes in their schedule that they can just stop what they're doing if they're not, obviously going to a meeting. And if you call them and say, hey, look, can you just give me 10 minutes at some point today? I just need to talk this through. I'm not getting this, or here's what I need. And it's hard to explain this in email. I could do this so much more. We could do this so much quicker. You could probably answer me right now and I'll be out of your hair. We don't have to do 3 days worth of going back and forth. Hey, can you help me in email or can you help me? That's how I think you get on the wireless world is you still have to have communication. And I believe or voice directly with somebody is the best communication you can have. And at least for me, it's what builds the trust. Is you sit there and just put everything via email. They just know you as some person they have to answer via email. But if I've talked to someone and gone to meet them in person, I have more trust in them. And you know what? They may probably answer when I finally have to email them, they'll probably answer my email first because I made the effort to reach out to them and not just be one of 5,000 questions they got today.
And I think that's a lesson for everyone, like to build the element of trust and personal relationships. It can't be done virtually, and we live in a world of social media and everyone's perfect life put online, but you'll never know the true nature of the person to actually meet them face to face. But it's increasingly difficult. Like I said, we're global economy and so forth, and outsourcing of jobs. It's a real challenge. But aside from that sort of a piece we spoke about there about the one-to-ones and garnering trust, are there any other sort of challenges you found in transition from the military to the corporate world? Just some of those sticking points that maybe some people should be aware of before they transition out into the corporate environment.
Okay, so I'm going to do everything I can not to curse right here. So one of the biggest things you have when you're in the military is you say something and someone does it. It's not questioned. It's not, obviously as long as it's for safety, you're not safety. Chief tells you to go do something. It should take you 3 hours. There better be a damn good reason that I knew I was going to do it. There better be a darn good reason that you don't have it done in 3 hours or it's not done right the first time. There's just, how to do it. He trusted you. He told you, you go do it. You get in the civilian world and you look around, and if you have people working for you, or if you expect, if someone says they're going to do something, or you tell someone to do it, you just expect they'll do it. Well, another meeting came up. Well, a thing came up, and like, oh my God, they didn't do it. How do I hold this person accountable? You can't take away the liberty. You can't take away their pay. You can't drop them rank. And you're like, oh God, how do I get this person to do what I need them to do without basically beating them over the head with a wet hose? I mean, that honestly, it was the hardest part of coming out was
That's trying to find new ways of motivating when you don't have the the naval law behind you. Yeah.
exactly. And it was, and working with my family for a while, they're like, Jen, stop being military. You can't do that to people. The guy's gonna quit on us. That's his employee. He's worked here for 15 years. He's gonna quit if you say it. I'm like, but Dad, he's got to do that. I'm like, no, he doesn't. He does it because he wants to, not because you're forcing him.
So is the solution you got to be a bit more adaptive and know your people, maybe just that little bit more to find out what's truly motivating them?
It truly is. You've got to learn. You've got to learn why somebody. Like I said, what gets them going, what motivates them, why they wanted to come work for this company. Are they just coming every day to get a paycheck because they need a paycheck? Those are tough ones. But you know what? Find what motivates them. Why are they coming to get the paycheck? Are they just working for your company because it's just the one job that would hire them, or they're working for your company because it's close to home? What can you do that'll get them motivated? It kind of goes back to schooling. What's going to motivate you to want to go back to school, or what's going to motivate you to do better in your career? Think about that the same way when you're with the people you work with or the people that work for you. What really drives them to be what they are? And if you can find that, I think that's how you become a successful employee, boss, peer, all the way around.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Thanks for articulating that. So I really want to get into talk a bit more about some of the programs and initiatives you were involved with. We've spoken briefly about Vet Next, but there's also the Veterans in Energy Forum that you spoke on recently, and I know tomorrow you're going up to Penn State to talk to students up there about wind energy and so forth. But would you outline for our listeners some of the initiatives you're involved with and how you involve the veterans in those processes?
Yeah. Again, I'm really lucky to work for an amazing company that really supports the veterans in our company, in our organization. Like I said, we're 600 members strong now. Woohoo! Good job, Vet Next, of active members. Can't say active duty. Active members in our company of our 2,200 veterans. But I believe that an employee their happiness or their enjoyment or their fulfillment doesn't start when they walk in the door of that company, when they walk out the door of that company. It's a 24-hour cycle. So one of the things that veterans do, and we do quietly, but it really means a lot to us, is help out other veterans. I would say of our 600 active veterans in our organization, in our employee resources group, probably 300 to 400 of them are out doing volunteer work with veterans organizations every weekend, and they never say a thing. Veterans aren't going out there waving the flag going, hey, look what I did today. They just go do it. They're not looking for anyone to give them praise. They're not looking for anyone to say pat on the back. They just go do it because they know it's the right thing to do. And so that's one of the second things that are on top of career growth for our organization, our career growth for the employees in our employee resources group. What can we do to help our community? It's really important for us. We have a couple of major charities we work with locally in the South Florida area, and then nationally with our different veterans all across the U.S. because our company's in 42 states now, and we have organizations that are important to each individual state and those veterans there. But locally, because we have the biggest presence in Florida, of our 15,000 employees, over 10,000 of them are in the state of. Actually, I think 11,800 are now in the state of Florida. And so we work with Forgotten Soldiers Outreach. It does care packages for deployed soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines all around the U.S. People forget all the time that there's folks still in Djibouti, South Korea, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Kuwait, what's the NORCOM or the new AFRICOM?
AFRICOM.
Yeah. All these places we still have people at that people forget because we're not big, huge wartime magazine articles. There's still troops deployed everywhere. Another one is Stand Down House, Faith, Love, and Hope charity. We're actually going there in a week and 2 weeks from now. We're every Christmas. We go there multiple times a year to mentor rehabbing veterans that are rehabbing from alcohol, PTSD, drug, just times in their life that whatever got them down. And it's a kind of a halfway house, helping them rehab, learn a career, or get back into the social world, because a lot of them were homeless for a long period of time. So we're actually going to be there right the weekend before Christmas. We always do a big Christmas dinner with all the folks. This year is one of their largest years. They have 30 individual male veterans at this location that were homeless. And we're going to go, we teach them how to cook. We talk to them. A lot of these guys have come to work for a different program, or over the years have come to work on different projects for our company, constructing solar projects in the state of Florida. And then we'll also work with Operation 120, which is helping get homeless female veterans off the street. One of the largest populations of, unfortunately, suicide rates and homelessness in our military world are females. And we're afraid to say things to anybody. We're afraid to mention that there's something wrong because, you look at the things that are out there, you just assume you see a female, you see a husband and a wife together, or you see a lady and a gentleman together, and you say one of them are veterans, 99% of the time, including myself, unbiasedly, you look at the man and go, oh, you must be the veteran, forgetting that the woman's out there. And that 10% of our force is female. So we're trying to help some of those things here. And one of the ones I'm really proud of that we just did in Jupiter, Florida, was the Gary Sinise Foundation. Everyone out there knows Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump. I cannot give enough praise to this man for all that he does. This weekend was the weekend that he brought over 1,000 Gold Star families to Disney World, and pays for their airfare to get there, pays for them to go enjoy the park for one day. I think actually it's a day and a half of the park. They get therapy. They get an opportunity to interact with other Gold Star families and kind of understand what it's like to lose a family member. And then on one of the many programs he does, and what we're working with in Colorado, Missouri, and Florida, is he builds homes for disabled veterans. And this year we got to work with a house they're building in Jupiter for a local veteran, disabled veteran. We did all the landscaping. We did the generator. We donated funds towards some of the appliances. We're wrapping, kind of helping him get some of the local area. One of the veterans is actually on the town council, helping him kind of get through the permitting process to help things go a little faster. It's just little things like that you can do. You give back. I mean, again, we are so lucky. I work for an amazing company. I live in what I personally believe is the best country in the world. I got to serve, I think it's the best branch of service in the world.
Amen.
There we go. And why can't I give back? Why? I have everything I could ever need and more. The least I can do is give back, because if I can be successful, why can't I teach someone else? Because someone taught me. It wasn't like I just all of a sudden randomly woke up one day and I'm just super fabulous. Even though I'm in the Navy, I probably am. But somebody helped me along the way. I had mentors both in the military. Actually, my Master Chief Manning. If you're listening, Master Chief Manning, you are still the most amazing man in the world. This was my former strike officer chief. That man took better care of the people on the ship than I've ever seen. He knew what made them tick, and he knew, if they needed a break, they needed to let loose, or just what he needed to do to motivate. Sometimes motivating was old school motivating, but he helped me. He's like, ma'am, you need to go back to your stateroom. You need to go study that another hour. That was what you just did. I know you tried, it didn't work. I'm like, oh crap, Chief's not happy with me. I didn't do that one right. But I mean, I just look at it. He always was a great motivator, and he always was someone that, he helped me. So why? And he was very passionate about kids sports. And he's a coach. He now lives in Bath, Maine, works for Bath Iron Works. He's a coach for multiple kids' sports. He's a mentor to high school students, at-risk high school students. And I'm like, if he can find time to do all this, why can't I do a little bit? And I want my kids to know it. I want my kids to see that just because we're in first world. Again, it's always first world problems, I'd like to say. Okay, so today you didn't get the, A+, you got the 90, or today your friend got the new toy or whatever it may be, and sorry, yours is a couple years old, or you didn't get the toy that you wanted because you thought you deserved it. Welcome to the world. You can't be entitled to everything. But what you can do is you got a roof over your head. You got food whenever you want it. You have a free education. You get to go to school. You have all the things that some people wish they could have. Give back.
Starting to sound like me talking to my children there. But it's sound advice across the board. And that's some amazing work you were talking about there. And I think all our listeners will really appreciate it. And God bless those crusty old chiefs, because they're the salt of the earth.
They are.
I kind of want to start tying the interview up now, but you've covered such a lot of ground here. And I just want to ask you, what's the thing you enjoy the most about what you do?
I enjoy the opportunity to be a voice for veterans. When I came to our company, I was just one of 15,000 people. I love the work that I do. I think it's really cool developing wind, solar, and battery storage and building it and constructing it. But I was just somebody there doing the work. Getting involved with VetNext and getting involved, I was being in the military. You're just in the military. You're just doing your job. When you get out, you're in the reserves. You're just in there. You're doing your job. You get out. You're like, oh, cool, Veterans Day, Memorial Day. You go out and you do little things. But being part of a veteran organization like we are, I get to be their voice. I get to say what I think is important for us as a group and how that will help our company. I can help lead, again, our industry, the energy industry, is leading us to the next generation of what's going to come. We kind of talked about before, battery walls, how our house is going to be self-sufficient in the future. I mean, everyone's going to probably, what was the Jeffersons back in the day, flying between places? I mean, I get to be their voice for our company. I get to be our voice outside of our company. What can we do? What can we help inside and outside? And again, like I said, I push the education piece of it because I'm not exactly the quiet one in the corner. I'm constantly pushing. What can you do? Like I said, I went and did it. Getting my education, getting my MBA, and then there's still all kinds of other programs. I'm constantly out there going to say, okay, if I do this 1 week course here to help me out and learn this one new skill, or go out there. Don't just sit on your laurels. Go out. The United States military gave you an opportunity. You earned that opportunity to get a free education or to better yourself. Go do it. Don't just let it sit there and go on, sit on the shelf and collect dust. Go better yourself. Get that little bit of education, be it, again, vocational, technical, going to a 4-year college, going to just a night school, whatever it is. Do something that you're passionate about and whether it helps you out today, tomorrow, 5 years, or 10 years from now, it's going to make you better. And that's what my passion, that's what I really, truly enjoy of having that opportunity of being, a chair of our employee resources group and really working with veterans. And not, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. And I love it. Like I said, who else, what other group could I go and hang out with on the weekend to go, helping rehab veterans and calling each other all kinds of names and talking complete utter crap, but we all have each other's backs at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's great to sit across from here and talk and see someone with such genuine passion and enthusiasm for such a great cause and doing such amazing work. Okay, Jennifer, before we finish, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Veterans in Energy organisation. I understand you were recently a moderator on a panel for professional development at a conference in Washington, D.C. I wonder if you wouldn't mind summarising some of the key points you took away or that you presented at that forum, because I think our listeners would really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a great organization that helps veterans come into the energy industry. Over 200,000 veterans are getting out of the service every year, from every branch, be it from the reserves, active duty, ready reserve. And our organization is saying, your skill set is perfect for our industry. You guys you understand what it's like to do the hard work. You understand what it's like to make decisions off of very little information. You're not worried about, multiple factors coming in at one time and where do you go? Where do you turn? We want you in our industry. So Veterans in Energy is an organization of utility companies and utility-minded businesses, or energy-minded businesses that are working together. All of our employee resources groups from each company get together and we say, how can we bring veterans to us? How do we go out and reach them and teach and tell them about the energy industry? I think it was our 4th year. We work with Soldiers for Life. We work with the Department of Labor, Department of Defense, and Department of Energy. So when you bring those 3 major organizations together, and then some of the different charities that are out there that are trying to help transition during the TAP program, we are a perfect fit. And I would love for all your listeners to go look at Veterans in Energy. Just go look it up online and you see all the different members we have. It's all of the big boys in the world, even some of the smaller companies, the big boys in the world of the energy industry. And again, it's veterans. It's not the HR guy that's trying to convince you. It's a veteran in that company that took the time out of their everyday job to not only be on an employee resources group for that company, but then agreed to come and do this for the organization. And we're trying, like I said, our goal is between 20 and 30,000 veterans per year to bring into our industry. We do it through training programs. There are multiple companies within our Veterans in Energy organization that'll actually do a 6-month training program where your last 6 months of active duty, you go and train for you still get paid your full active duty pay, but you're physically training at that company. It's kind of like a little internship, shall we say, at any age. And it's an opportunity for you to kind of learn the industry and see if you like that company. Now they've invested in you for 6 months. You got a 6-month head start on anybody else coming into that company or into that industry that they don't have.
This is a nationwide program.
This is a nationwide program. They're all across the U.S. Different companies are doing it, and we're pushing for it. Again, this is an industry that, at the end of the day, you want to play on your cell phone. You want to turn the lights on in your house. You want your car to be able to go. No one's going anywhere without energy companies, be it wind, battery storage, oil, gas, coal, nuclear, transmission, fossil fuels, fracking, hydro. You need power. Come and join our industry. And Veterans in Energy is a place where veterans can start. You kind of start there, and we'll help you get to the major companies. We'll help you find a company that's either where you're already located with your family, you don't want to move, or where you want to locate to, or a job you're looking for. But it's a organization of veterans that work at we're all competitors. At the end of the day, our companies compete against each other. But this is the one area we all work together, and it's just veterans helping other veterans come into the industry.
That's great. And if it's okay with you, Jennifer, I'll put the link to their website on the show notes to this podcast.
Great. That'd be wonderful.
Fantastic. Okay, so Jennifer, we're coming to the end of our conversation now. I just want to close by thanking you for your time and sharing your passion and your fascinating insights into continuous education and all your skills and experience that you've had throughout your time in the military. It's been a real joy to listen to, and I think it's really been a true benefit to veterans and non-veterans alike that listen to our podcast. I'm sure what you've said has generated a lot of interests and a lot of questions, so I'd like to ask you first if you are happy for people to reach out to you, and if so, how can they contact you?
Yeah, I'd love for everyone to come and talk to me anytime. You can contact me. My email address is jennifer.herron@nee.com, at novemberechoecho.com. So feel free. I'm sure it's probably going to be linked on here to contact me that way. It's probably the best way because I travel quite often and spend more time in planes than I ever care to. So that's the one way that with Delta Go-Go, you can always find me.
That's great. Jennifer, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and thank you for being so generous with your time.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. And hey, any chance I get to say, go Navy, beat Army, I'm going to do it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Greencastle podcast. Please be sure to give us a like, a thumbs up, a share. You can find us at greencastleconsulting.com/podcast or on all the major podcast channels and the social media channels, including our YouTube channel. Thanks very much. We'll see you on the next episode.